watching us on Facebook Live. We're just going to take a minute and get organized, set up our watch parties. But I'm Lauren from RDU on Stage, and I am here with Dustin Britt
That's
from.
me.
Are you there? Hang on, Dustin. I'm trying to run tech. This is why I can't run. You're here. This is why I
I'm
can't run
absolutely
tech.
here.
And I'm here with Dustin Britt from Chatham Life and Style and Brian Westbrook. And
Of the
I
Henderson Westbrooks.
Henderson Westbrooks.
and I am going to turn my camera and mic off, but I will be monitoring the Facebook comments and questions. So if you have any questions or comments, I will forward them to these guys. Thank you for doing this, both of you.
Thank you for asking me. I'm looking forward to it.
This is fun.
Behave, Dustin.
Mm,
No.
that wasn't part of the agreement.
All right. Well, have fun.
Let me get this where I can watch party the thing. Okay,
I
so
think I just did it. I'm not
you
sure.
did.
Yeah.
Well, you're so much cleverer than I. Watch party.
I had to search for it a couple times before it popped up.
Yeah. Come on, thing. Okay. Live.
Oh, and people are joining too. That's so cute.
I know we're like still popular. What did you search for? Did you go into live?
I searched for RDU on stage.
So did I.
Well, hi everybody that's watching so far. I'm seeing it scroll, but I can't read the names.
All right, let me see. All right, we're just trying to get our little watch parties going so more people can be all into it. Add videos. Oh, I bet I know. I bet I know what to do. Maybe the cat will join me this time. I interviewed Renee Wimberly last week, and the cat was very involved in everything that was going on. She's quite near me.
Well, she's welcome to join, but she has to sing.
Whew. All right, let's see. Live. Stay there. Oh, was that it?
I don't know, but I can't see your screen.
Oh, I found it. Okay. I found the thing. All right, cool. So there, your watch party is about to begin. Found it. Okay. I found the thing.
You might want to.
Yeah, we don't want to hear me. So there, your watch party is about to begin. Oh, that's cool. Found it. Okay. I found the thing.
Oh my God. Stop.
There we go. Okay. Oh my God. Al Riggs is also in the room. There's some really creepy things going on.
I feel like you opened a wormhole.
I think so. All right. So if you didn't see Lauren's little intro, I am Dustin Britt. I'm the managing editor for Chatham Life and Style and Local Know-It-All. And I'm here with a local actor, singer, all-around swell guy, Brian Westbrook. I'm coming to you from my gracious drawing room. Brian, where are you?
This is not a fancy Zoom background. This is McGregor Hall in Henderson, North Carolina, which is my hometown and one of my favorite places in the world to be and to perform. And I feel really, really lucky that I'm actually getting to rehearse something which is why I'm here tonight. So it's really, really cool to be back in the theater. And so I thought everyone might, enjoy seeing a theater.
So you didn't just break in?
No, I didn't break in. I have a key. I'm just kidding.
That's not a good story at all. You completely screwed the pooch. There should be a good break-in story there. So, for those who don't know, you tell us a bit about your background as a North Carolina boy. Where are you from, and how did you get started in theater?
I'm from Henderson, so I'm from here, born and raised, and I got started in theater as a fan. I had really awesome parents who saw me become obsessed with the film version of Little Shop of Horrors on TV when I was in like 5th or 6th grade, and got me the soundtrack, and then got me the soundtrack to Cats and to Phantom and all these musicals. And so, yeah, I started out as a fan. We had summer theater here, and we've had summer theater here in Henderson for almost 50 years. And I did a little bit of that when I was growing up, but not a whole lot, because I would also go off and do other things in the summer. And then we didn't really have much theater at all when I was in high school. So I didn't start really kind of in earnest acting and really being on stage stuff until I was in college, and then out of college. But I was studying piano. I was a singer and a musician by training long before that, from the time I was like 8 years old. My dad's a musician, a very musical family. So that's really where it started.
So I know that you mentioned a musical family. I know that you've performed as the Westbrooks.
Yes.
I've had the pleasure, as have you, of sharing the stage with one of your marvelous brothers. So tell me about the family making music together and where that started and what that's like.
Yeah. So it started with my dad. My dad is a musician, is a brilliant piano player and singer. And when we were growing up, I always tell this story about him. When we were real small, he used to play this game where, like, we would pick up a stick and pretend to conduct while he played piano. And, my naive little ass thought that what he was playing was only because of what I was conducting. I believed that I was making the music with those swishy arm movements that I was making like a conductor. And it was magical.
So that's how you developed swishy arm movements.
Yeah, that came much earlier. So it started there. I started taking piano lessons. We always loved music and listening to music. I played piano from the time I was 8. My brothers taught or self-taught. My older brother David plays guitar and harmonica. My little brother plays bass. All 3 of us and my dad sing. And so that's how, we started just a couple of years ago performing together. My dad and my older brother have been playing together for years and years and years. And so, yeah. And then, we just like to jam out in the garage and have fun that way. And my mother is the best fan of us than anyone could be, obviously.
So what was the first show that you did that really the bug bit you and you said, okay, so this is obviously a thing I want to do?
Show that I did?
Yeah.
Okay, so I feel like I don't want to contradict myself a little bit here, but actually I was in 7th grade and my parents knew that I loved theater, and Lewisburg College, just down the road, was doing a production of Oliver. And I auditioned, and in 7th grade, I got to play the Artful Dodger in a college production of Oliver. And I knew, I feel like I knew before then, but I certainly knew, like, when I got up there and was doing that I wanted to do it more. And I wanted to, to just keep on doing that and grow up in bed. I remember wanting to be everybody. I wanted to be Nancy. I wanted to be Bill Sykes. I wanted to be Fagin. I wanted to be all of them. I settled for Dodger. He was pretty cool.
what is a role that you've done that you want to go back and you want to try again a different way?
That I want to go back and try again a different way. It's weird. I've never thought about that because I don't like going.
Not that you screwed it up.
Well, no.
But that, because that's never happened. But that you'd like to take another stab at, maybe explore it again.
Let's see. Well, the one I always say that I would love to play over and over and over again that I've already done twice is Frankenfurter and Rocky Horror Show. That's just, I mean, you're just given so much opportunity to just chew that scenery up and have fun, and just I love that character. I love doing it. Plus, every time you do it, you can, it's a different production, it's a different group. It's true with any show, but I know the two runs of it that I did, they were both completely different, but both it's just as much fun as the other. And both casts were really great. They were both in different spaces, and I just loved it. And I also think it's a role that, like, if somebody will cast me, I'll play that till I'm 90. I think Frankenfurter is immortal, in my opinion.
So, I know that you are a huge fan of Mr. Stephen Sondheim. Anyone who knows you, even in passing, knows that you are a fan of the great Sir Lord Baron Stephen Sondheim. I think he should be made British so he can be knighted. What does Sondheim mean to you? Why the connection?
Okay, so picture it. Henderson, 1993. So I had been a fan of musical theater, but I didn't know Sondheim shows. I had played Sin and the Clowns on piano at a recital when I was like 12, but I didn't know anything about it. But in 1993, there was a celebration of Stephen Sondheim at Carnegie Hall and PBS. And so I blame PBS for everything.
Me too.
But that
every birthday they have to do some shebang.
But that concert is a touchstone. I still go back to it. I still listen to it, and for a couple of reasons. One, for every song that they did, they also put the name and the logo of the show up there. So I wasn't able to go and research and buy them all. But the one that really struck me and stood out to me was when they did some numbers from Assassins. Those who don't know, it's a show that he wrote with John Weidman about all of the assassins or attempted assassins in U.S. history. And it was watching Victor Garber as John Wilkes Booth and sing. And somehow I was like, wait a second, did I just feel something for John Wilkes Booth, who assassinated Abraham Lincoln? And I remember being just kind of transfixed by this notion that, whoever you are, you've got, like, it was just, they were mining the emotions deeper than I'd ever heard before. And I still haven't heard, from any other composer. So that I remember, and then I remember the closing number, which was everyone coming on stage. Was the first time I ever heard the closing of the first act of Sunday in the Park with George, Sunday. And so hearing that for the first time gave me chills. And so literally right after that, I went and got every single cast album that I could. And the other one was Madeline Kahn doing Getting Married Today from Company. That was the funniest thing that I had ever seen in my life at that
Legendary.
Point. Yeah.
Legendary. Yeah, what's so fascinating about that is, so many wonderful actresses have done it. Julie Andrews has done it. And what I love about Julie Andrews' version is that she does both of the parts, which is cool. But yeah, Madeline Kahn's really funny.
Yeah,
it's hard to be funny and to also find the humor in it. So you've done some Sondheim. I saw you play the Beetle, and you were phenomenal.
Thank you.
I had the honor of watching you every night do the Baker and Into the Woods. Again, phenomenal. Have you done other Sondheim other than those two?
Yes, I actually did here in Henderson. I was privileged enough to play Bobby in Company for Vance Granville Community College under the brilliant direction of Betsy Henderson, who I love dearly, which was a which was a real privilege and one of those that I've been waiting to do for a long time. That was great. I've also done a funny thing happened on the way to the forum twice. I did it when I was in college, and then I also did it when I was working for a theater in Ohio. So I've done those two, all of those.
Who were you in Forum?
I was Marcus Lycus when I played it in college, and then I was a Protean, one of the acrobats when I did it in Ohio. And gosh, it's hard to think on the spot. I think those are the only ones that I. Oh well, I directed, I music directed Side by Side by Sondheim several years ago at Van Scramble, which was awesome for me. I love that.
Who were your actors?
So my actors were, gosh, I'm gonna remember all their names now. So my dear friends, Peyton Grissom and Leanne Shelton were in it. Andy Dickerson was in it. Kelsey Aycock, who is doing great stuff in New York right now, was in it. Keita Smith, Joey Humbert, Justin Walker. Oh my gosh, did I remember everyone? If I forgot you, I'm sorry.
Side by Side's the big one. Putting it together is the small one, right?
Okay. So Side by Side originally was just 3 people. Yeah, it was just 3 people. But it's written in a way that, you know, I've seen professional productions with like 20 people, and I cast the people that I liked and that I thought would do well. You know, but it was originally in its first 2 big runs on the West End and here. It was just 3 people.
For those who don't know what Side by Side is, can you kind of?
Yeah, it's a review. And it's the first major review that was given productions of Stephen Sondheim's music, and it goes up through company. Actually, I think it might go up through Pacific Overtures, because there's stuff from Pacific Overtures in there. So it's 3 performers, and they do all of these and this review includes songs or shows for which he just wrote the lyrics to. So there's stuff from Gypsy, there's stuff from West Side Story in there, but there's also some real obscure stuff that, you know,
Primrose and like
it's Primrose. There's also the Mad Show with the boy from, which Lily Tomlin did on the 90th birthday celebration. I was so glad to see that. And my friend Leanne kicked butt singing that. She was hilarious. So yeah, it's a really great review. I'd love to do it again one day.
And then there's Putting It Together, and that seems to kind of pick up where that one left off.
Putting It Together it's a review, but they also try to inject some structure around it. So they
try really hard.
Well, Putting It Together, it's done as a dinner party, and it's generally it was originally done with 4 people, you know, 2 couples in different, you know, age groups basically, and then they play all these various relationships, and it's a setting for what Sondheim has, you know, mined most in his life, which is the neuroses of relationships between people.
Right. It's the I Love You, You're Perfect Now change of Sondheim musicals.
Yeah.
Now, obviously, I've done this. Do you have your Tony speech? And how long have you had your Tony speech?
No, I don't have my Tony speech.
Never stood at the bathroom mirror and like done the speech?
No, if I'm standing in front of a bathroom mirror, I'm either singing Sondheim or I am lip syncing Madonna. I don't know. No, I haven't. I mean, I do. I love the Tony Awards, and man, don't get me wrong. Like I've got the fantasy, but to be honest with you, my fantasy isn't winning. My fantasy is getting on the Tony Awards and singing my butt off, and like I'm gonna be up there doing a number. You know, that's what I want to do. I'm also not a public speaker. I've been in Toastmasters because I'm just not good at it. Like that kind of stuff kind of gets my hands sweat, like this interview does.
So you and I met because you were music directing 9 to 5 at Interact not too long ago. So I knew you first as a music director. So obviously music directing and acting couldn't be more different. What similarities and differences do you find between doing those 2 jobs? And do you feel more like one or the other? How do you choose the projects?
So I've got obviously more experience acting and performing. I think I say that just because if I were to fill out my resume, I don't have that many, directing credits. But, I spent almost 9 years working for a theater in Ohio where I did a lot of music directing and band leading and stuff like that. So I'll say this, the thing that I love about music directing or choreographing or directing is the teaching part of it. I'm from a family of brilliant teachers. Both my parents, my brother, my sister-in-law, like a lot of really great educators. And so I feel fortunate enough to know what the reward of that is. And so that's what I love about music directing and choreographing, that and being that part of the creation process and being able to see the whole vision and work towards it from that side of the house. Because when you're on stage and you're doing it, you're in control of your own performance, and but you're also just sort of you don't have the perspective of being outside and looking in. And so like I always say this too, like I will never see a show that I'm in, people have talked about, this show is better, this show is better. And I was like, well, I can't speak objectively. I can never speak objectively about a show that I am in, which is another reason that I don't mind reading reviews, because I didn't see it. I didn't see the show.
Right.
So being a director on the other side, it's thrilling to get to see it and get to see it, come to life and be a part of that.
Do you think that being a singer and being an MD, that one provides special insight for the other and makes you better?
Yeah. Well, all knowledge makes you better at things. So yes, I think so. I think as a music director, I think I am more aware of, how much a cast can take before you need to give them a break. And, when people are getting it and not getting it, when people are getting frustrated, because I've been there and I've done that. And I also, as a performer and working under really great music directors, I've learned tricks about, how best to do it. So yeah, it's all information and knowledge.
Awesome. So this is very frequently on Facebook, someone will drop the question, like, what are your top 3 dream roles? And we all kind of have our go-to answers and things like that. What are some roles or types of roles you would love to tackle regardless of type? Take type out of it. Take skill out of it. What's some stuff that you would just love to work on?
So for the longest time, most of my life, the majority of my life, I never did straight plays. Words mean different things, Dustin. Side note, I have to say, Christopher Plummer won a Tony Award back when I was in high school, and he thanked the director, Garth Drabinsky, and he said, I want to thank Garth Drabinsky for having the courage to do a straight play. And I thought he was being homophobic because I didn't know what straight play meant. So that's just a little thing about me that happened. I started, I was blessed enough to get to work on Mothers and Sons at RLT a couple years ago.
A beautiful production.
Thank you. It was, and I really appreciate and thank Tim Locklear for that.
Mm-hmm.
And after that, I realized I was like, I can do it. Not only can I do it, but I really enjoy it. And so I want to try. Honestly, I want to try Shakespeare. I've never done Shakespeare before. I've always loved language. I've loved doing the sonnets a couple times for Kurt, and I just like, it makes no sense that someone with my experience and my love of the art form wouldn't have done that.
Blend of music. There's nothing more musical.
Right, absolutely. And Shakespeare, he's got a lot of clowns in his shows. So like, I've got it in. I mean,
you would be a killer Festi, a musical clown. I mean, see now this is all going here. I'm like, God, okay, what I gotta do a Shakespeare project with Brian. What are we gonna do? We're gonna do it.
So yeah, I mean, I think Shakespeare. I would like to do more straight plays. I honestly, I also, because I've been a fan of musical theater for so long, you know, naturally you just start looking out other places for things that other than the stuff that's, you know, the blockbusters and things. There are a lot of, you know, lesser known, brilliant musicals that that I honestly, at some point in my life, I want to see produced somewhere. And the older I get, the less I'm, you know, super attached to wanting to perform in them, but just wanting to see them get done and put on their feet. You know,
Like what?
so Michael John LaChiusa has written some brilliant shows. Some people might know they did a film version of his show Hello Again a couple of years ago. It was at the Gay and Lesbian Film Festival. It came out of theater a couple of years ago. Audrey McDonald was in it. But he wrote a play called, a musical called See What I Want to See, back in like 2003, 2004. Dina Menzel was in it, Mark Kudish, and you know, it kind of gets branded as a 9/11 musical because it's mentioned in there, and it's certainly about dealing with tragedy, and it's about dealing with relationships after tragedy. But it's one of those touchstone musicals for me when, you know, I was in my 20s and I was working and doing sketch comedy mostly, and I just was enraptured by it. He also wrote a version of Medea set in turn of the century Creole Louisiana called Marie Christine with
Yes,
Audra McDonald
yes.
as the lead, and it is man, it is sharp, and it is hard, and it is scary, and it is thrilling. I'd love to see that one day.
Do you want to direct?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah.
What kind of stuff do you want to dig your hands into?
So because I don't have a ton of experience with directing, I want to start with stuff that I'm familiar with, which would be musicals. And I've talked with people that I respect, directors that I respect, and friends that I respect about the fact that I want to direct, and gotten some good advice about, you know, starting small casts, just small productions, so you can focus on the work. So that's what I'm thinking right now. You know, I've been thinking about going back and doing side by side again, with, you know, the knowledge that I've got now. But you know, one acts, any of these small plays that maybe a playwrights forum does, you know, that's sort of what I want to start, so I can. It's a safer place to learn, but definitely, you know. But then definitely I want to move on to direct some of the things that, like I said, things that I haven't seen before, but also shows that I love, that I feel like I know really well. I don't feel like I want to direct every single Sondheim show, if anybody's wondering.
There are parts of me, like I mourn the fact that, let's be honest, we're not gonna get a Pacific Overtures is just not, it's not gonna happen.
Well, I mean, look.
Not here.
Well, no, I mean, look, Pacific Overtures, when it was produced, and for those who don't know, Pacific Overtures is a show that's done in the Japanese kabuki style, and it is about, you know, it takes place in during the sort of the opening of trade routes and things like that with Japan, and it was done, and I'm going to get the year wrong, but like 78, 79 or something like that.
Sounds right. I think, yeah.
And they knew enough then to know that Yellowface wasn't going to fly, and cast an all Asian cast. You know,
all men.
All men, yeah. Well, because it's kabuki style too.
Yeah.
You know? So, and I will say that Sondheim has been on record as, you know, his favorite song that he has ever written is from that show, and it's called "Someone in a Tree."
Oh.
And it is told, you know, it's the perspective of a moment in time told from three different people. One person who can see everything in a tree but can't hear everything. One person who's under the boards, can hear everything, can't see everything, and just how a moment changes the course of history. And it's absolutely brilliant.
So you've MD'd, you've directed some, you've done a lot of acting. What have you got coming up next? Because I know there's something very exciting you're working on at the moment.
I am. That's why I was here. That's why I'm here, actually, as I mentioned before. So, I was talking with Mark Hopper, who is my dear friend, who runs McGregor Hall and directs most all of the shows here. He directed us in Into the Woods, and he's a great music director. And a couple weeks ago, month ago or so, time is weird now. Michael Urie, who performed in a one-man show off Broadway back in 2013, did a recorded version of the show from his apartment as a fundraiser. It's called Buyer and Seller. It's Buyer and Seller. It's by Jonathan Tollins, and it was up for like 48 hours. And I sent the link to Mark, and I was just like, I want to do this one day. And Mark called my bluff and got the rights and said, let's do it. So we're going to be doing this one-man show. It's called Buyer and Seller. The premise is preposterous. It's about an out-of-work actor who gets a job working at the shopping mall in Barbra Streisand's basement. Now, the actor is fictional. The shopping mall in Barbra Streisand's basement is real.
Which is insane.
She has one, yeah. It's this great show that imagines what would happen if somebody had to work down there. And it's about it's about isolation, it's about relationships, it's about fame, it's about sort of learning who you are, coming of age kind of thing, but it's also really freaking funny. And so Mark got the rights, and we are going to film it on stage here at McGregor, and then broadcast it over 2 weekends, 2 Saturday nights. So it'll be on June 13th and June 20th. I guess that's the next Saturday. And you'll be able to buy a ticket. Anyone in the world can watch it and buy a ticket, and you'll get a link. It'll be through eTix. I think it's going to be on Vimeo. And so, yeah, we're going to film it over 1 weekend and edit it and then present it over the next 2 Saturdays. So I am very, very busy learning lots and lots of lines and lots of characters.
So so obviously something like that, it's really very much a conversation with the audience. So how do you plan to work around that problem?
So we've talked about a couple different things, and I think we've landed on actually having a small number of people here. The max of people that you can have indoors is 10, and with me, the director, our tech guy, that leaves 7 other people. McGregor Hall is big enough that you can do that, certainly 6 feet apart. And so we're going to have, I think, 7 people on stage and 4 cameras set up. Now we're in the process of blocking right now, and we've been playing with different ways of how to achieve that, right? So what is done to the camera straight on, what is done, to the people. I don't have much experience, working for the camera. So that's part of why I like that we're going to have some people here. That's what I'm used to. And it would also be odd to perform this without having any laughs whatsoever. So that'll be nice. And so, yeah, we'll figure it out, and it'll be something.
So who is directing that piece?
Mark is directing. Yeah. So Mark is directing. Matt Nowell is our technical director. We're going to have a real minimal set. There's really not much that's needed for it. So yeah, Mark is directing and producing and everything. He runs this place.
So what's interesting is, is there a luxury in being able to stay with one character on one path, on one train of thought for an extended period of time? How does that help you, and how is it a hindrance?
So are you talking about this show? Because there's several characters.
As an example of a show. So there are shows where you've played 9, 10, 11, 12, 20
27.
characters. And then there's something like this where you're in one person and you're the only one. What are the individual challenges that these two different kinds of work present to you as an actor?
So when I'm doing a show where I've got to play multiple roles, well, so I'll say there's two different ones. So I've been lucky enough that this is the second show that I've done where I play multiple roles, but it's a one-man show, right?
Mhm.
So I don't have another body on stage that I'm interacting with. And my instinct normally is to make that other body be the audience and be,
Mhm.
because it's just human instinct. It's the other people that are there. But that doesn't always read well when you're having to switch characters. It's not always clear.
So you're playing multiple roles in this play.
I am, yes.
Got it. Okay.
Yeah, there are about 1, 2, 3, just like 5, I think. One of them being Barbara. So that's, but it's very clear in the script. I'm not doing a Barbara impression. Enough people do her. So it's just going to be what did I say? An homage, a glimpse, something. I don't know what it's going to be.
A smattering, an echo.
It's going to be a half decent Brooklyn accent
Oh.
with some physicality. That's what it'll be. So yeah, but shows like Gentleman's Guide, where I get to sort of sit in a character for a while, but I've also got other people to interact with. Those are from the perspective of blocking and just sort of the technical aspects of doing it. They're just sort of easier to figure out because you've got those boundaries. These shows like this and I Am My Own Wife, that's when you really need that director and an outside perspective to say, yeah, I can't tell the difference. I don't know when you're going back and forth. And for me, I like doing funny voices. So finding a voice that feels well, that is sustainable is a big one for me.
How do you choose a project? So let's say that you're not offered a project, but you see something and you decide to audition for it. What do you look for? What catches your eye?
So it's a couple things, and it's changed over the years. I used to go after stuff that were just parts I really wanted to play. And I'd say now it's a couple of different things. There are shows that I've gone out for because I've done because I really wanted to work with the director, or I really wanted to work with that ensemble or at that theater necessarily. If we're just talking about the piece of the play or the piece of art, it's got to have. I have to be able to recognize and see its humanity pretty quickly when I read it or I see it. I've got to be able to connect with the humanity of it, and doesn't mean it can't be super dark and super and abstract, but I got to be able to put myself in it, as a human. And it's a pretty esoteric answer, but there are certainly things that I've seen and things that I've read and shows that I just don't. It feels very surface, and I just don't know how to get underneath it, and so it becomes less meaningful. And as well as I do, committing to doing a show, no matter what you're doing, is a huge commitment, and it's a huge time commitment. And the older I get, more valuable my time is.
Right.
So all those considerations have sort of layered on the older I've gotten and the more stuff I've done.
Is there something you would never want to do?
Well, I'll try anything twice. That I know that I'd never want to do. I mean, there's stuff that I've done before that I don't want to do again.
Right.
I don't feel any real need to go and revisit much of the golden age of Broadway, the Rodgers and Hammerstein era, those shows. frankly, on stage or in the audience. You know, I've gone to see really, really technically wonderful productions and thought, why am I watching this story again? You know, not so much that it's a bad story or badly told, it's that now, and especially now, like, if we're choosing that story over the stories that are happening now, that people are writing now, like, what does that say about us that we can't really face
Right.
the stories of people that are alive and experiencing things now? That, and this has always been a thing with theater, that we are reverting back to stories that, I don't care, you know, it doesn't matter how true they are, or how, you know, uplifting they are. They are less and less relevant to the experience of people living right now,
Right.
and the majority of people living right now, because those shows are stories about a very small minority, really, of people who are alive on the planet right now.
What makes something deserving of a big revival? What do you think the criteria are?
If they screwed it up the first time, and it was a good show, like Chicago, for one thing.
Mhm.
So if uh, I think if a story is somehow comes back around to being more relevant, I'm trying to think of a good example. I think Chicago is a great example of that. If it comes back around to being even more relevant today, I think that's makes it worthy. And you know, some people have surprised me with their visions. You know, I was really wary of the Pippin revival on Broadway several years ago, the Diane Paulus one, just because I love that show, but it was so firmly embedded in the 70s, and that Fosse and that I was like, okay, that's super stylistically there. But I was blown away.
How do you remove Fosse from that and it not be something completely unrecognizable?
Well, yeah. I mean, because his fingerprints are not just on the choreography; it's all over it. But that was an outstanding, unbelievable production. But I also, I remember when I saw it live, I was like, well, you know, I didn't get all of the deep, you know, humanity of this show when I was watching Ben Vereen do it when I was in middle school anyway. You know, so maybe it's me. You know, you can't divorce yourself from that experience either. You know, when you're watching something, that's, you know, I'm always very aware that my opinion about something when I'm watching it is completely colored by my own experience and what I've been through in the world, and is always going to be subjective.
Am I recalling correctly that recently you saw Moulin Rouge?
Oh yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So I'm a huge fan of the film. Don't tell the person I live with because they tease me incessantly. I'm like, yes, it's an MTV video and it's perfect. So shut up.
It is perfect.
So I recently, for the first time, sat down and listened to the cast recording. Jukebox musicals and I have a complicated relationship. I listened to it. I want to know what you thought about the show and what your history is with the film.
I saw the film in the theater in Henderson, actually. It was between my time in college and when I moved to Ohio. And I went to see with the cast I was working with here on Joseph and the Amazing Technicolor Dreamcoat, another show I've done multiple times. Don't need to do that one again, I can say that. And we went to see it in the theater, and I was absolutely blown away. But I was blown away because that was spectacle and entertainment, but it was taken very, very seriously.
It was as close to live theater as I've felt in a cinema.
Yeah, absolutely. And it was produced that way. And I will say that I had an even stronger reaction when I saw it on stage last year. I was blown away. Now, it is built to do that. It is built to blow people away. And I'm always here for that. Like, I am susceptible. I am open to spectacle.
So you're not a cynic about it?
No, I'm a cynic about spectacle for spectacle's sake, right? So if you're taking it if one, you're taking yourself too seriously, then anybody can see through that. But two, if you aren't taking it seriously enough and are just putting spectacle things on stage and don't have the craft and the hard work and the work ethic behind it, you can see through that too. But this show had it all. Like everybody involved with this, the choreographer, the production team, the cast, the money. God, it's the most expensive thing I've ever seen. And it was an achievement, like an absolute achievement, and just fun. Like, I mean, I'm the kid who was in high school and went to Europe with an orchestra and bought an extra ticket to go see Starlight Express because I was like, I need to see roller skates.
And no one else saw
There were
that
people
show.
there. No, there were people there. Trust me. But I mean, I'm not saying that it certainly did not have the same effect on me that that Moulin Rouge did. But I'm here for it. Like, wow me.
What else have you seen recently in New York or anywhere that really blew you away?
Well, that same trip, we got to see Hadestown, and
which is coming here soon.
Yeah.
Well, next year, yeah.
And I'll catch flack for this probably somewhere, but Hadestown had a bigger effect on me than Hamilton did, and I saw the original cast of Hamilton in New York too. But it's because they're both very different achievements, and like I said, everything is through the lens of your own experience and where you are when you experience something. Mm-hmm. And the story that Hadestown has to say, and the way that it was told, and that music just got me, and it was perfect storm, and I was with people that I really, really love and care about, and but it was also just absolutely astounding, and I love mythology too. And don't get me wrong, I bawled my eyes out at Hamilton before and after, during and after, like on the way there too. It was awesome. Locally, two productions came to mind when you first said that. Locally, one was the RLT's production of Curious Incident, just past year, which is an astounding.
That's good stuff.
Well, and it's another one of those things I was talking about. That was an astounding achievement of a brilliant but really, really difficult script and story, and it was done really, really well. And the other one, for all sorts of reasons, is the production of King Lear that Sweet Tea did with Honest Pint.
Great show.
3 years ago, something like that. Mm-hmm. I'm not a big Shakespeare. Like, I don't know a lot of Shakespeare. Mm-hmm. I know some, and I did not know King Lear at all. And I did not know anyone in the cast. I'm really happy to say that I'm friends with some of them now, and I've done shows with some of them. But I remember going, and the way they put that show on, they invited the audience in from the very first moment, and there was music. It was great. I remember at intermission going outside and looking up the Cliff's Notes for King Lear just to see if I knew if what I thought was going on was actually what was going on. And I was like, oh my God, I'm right. Like, I totally am getting it. And I think
that's good direction
of
Shakespeare. When you stop sitting in, when you're not analyzing, but you're just living it, that's when you get Shakespeare right. That's when
I think audiences, and this is a prime example, like, I didn't trust myself going in that I would understand it. And I think that's what a lot of people think about Shakespeare, or even any other classical theater or classical music or modern dance or any of these sort of
opera. I hear that. I won't get it.
Yeah, I won't get it. I won't enjoy it. You've got to be an intentional audience member, which means you've got to, open yourself up to it. It really is up to you. Now, that being said, there are shows that I have worked to open myself up to that I still left at intermission because I just didn't care for it. And that's fine.
But you never know.
But you don't know unless you go and you try.
I think that's one of the big challenges, and it's kind of like what you're saying about revivals, is if we keep putting on the same 50 shows because we know they'll sell, we have to keep the doors open. But also, are we challenging our audiences enough?
Yeah, and I think that we've got a really big opportunity here. There was a great article shared by American Theater. I posted it the other day, and it was just a lot of the greatest minds working in theater today, performers, playwrights, directors, musing about what's theater going to look like in the future, and it talked about somebody even mentioned, I think the phrase they used was the tyranny of the proscenium that needs to go away. Like, I want to see theater in different spaces.
It's my kind of talk.
Well, I'd never thought of it before, but it's very exclusionary. You're putting this distance between yourself and the audience, and we do have to keep the doors open. But I also think that people are going to really want to be coming back through these doors. So we need to be mindful, intentional, and generous about what it is that we show them. And trust your audiences more. I think people, say we've got to keep the doors open and keep putting the same stories in front of them, and just assume that an audience won't come to see something new. And I've been around long enough to know that that's just not true. People will come.
And I wonder also how much of it is taking the risk to bring in a new audience, is not just playing to the seasoned members, but opening up the door and saying, maybe someone who's never seen a show might buy into this.
Absolutely. Especially, younger audiences. I don't know. I know that I was the only person I knew in high school that would have gone to see a production of Oklahoma. And meanwhile, like, put American Idiot on stage. Put,
Loved it.
So much amazing modern music that is being written for modern shows that's really great storytelling, and people dismiss it for whatever reason, that it's not fitting into their box of what theater or musical theater should be. And you only limit yourself that way.
Have you written any theater?
God, no. Have
you
I
composed anything for the stage?
No. I have written some funny limericks. I've done this. Actually, I've done this more for work, for my professional life, but like rewritten the lyrics to songs. But no, the closest I've come to that is choreography, and I love doing choreography. I did a lot of it when I was in Ohio, and it's the only place that I feel comfortable and confident with that kind of creation. I'm a musician, and I love playing piano, and I love singing, and I can maybe improv as a singer. I do not feel comfortable at all improving on piano. Never have. Mm-hmm. And I just haven't ever felt the pull to create in that way. Mm-hmm. And yeah.
What's the kind of music that you like to choreograph? What spoke to you?
Well, I'll say the first time I knew that that I needed to take dance a lot more seriously was when I was in college, and I took an African American dance class, and this was at Appalachian State, and we had a drummer come in there, and I spent 2.5 hours in a workshop and sweated my butt off, and had never felt better about that. And so I knew that I needed to be dancing more. And then everything that I've ever choreographed to before that has come easy has been upbeat, fast. Most of the stuff I choreographed to when I was in Ohio was all rock and roll, because we had a live rock band, the theater I worked at. And so I would work with my dear friend and boss, Stacey Board, and we would choreograph stuff to Bjork, to Stevie Ray Vaughan, to Incubus, Prince, and a lot of Prince. And so, yeah, just about anything, though. I mean, like, I really do love dance a lot.
So I'm assuming that there's a lot of dancing going on in your home now.
You would not be wrong. There have been a couple of videos that people have posted of like learning dance stuff, and I'm not on TikTok. I am not that queen, but there are different dance classes and stuff that I've taken. So yeah.
How else are you occupying yourself while trapped at home?
So I took up needlework a couple years ago. Took up cross stitch and embroidery.
Well, you were doing it at rehearsal for Into the Woods, I remember.
It was. Yeah. I started knitting. Yeah, I was doing knitting at that point. My grandmother used to do it when I was growing up, and so I picked it up maybe 2 years ago or so, and it's like instant mindfulness. And so I've been doing some of that. I also, and this is brand new for me, I'm the kid that like me and my brothers, we played Super Mario Brothers 3 in like 1989, and then we put our Nintendo away and never touched it again. I got a Nintendo Switch about 6 months ago, and I'm really finding out that like there's a lot of this gaming that I really love, and there's a lot of it that is story based, and there are like screenwriters that are writing games that are turn based in like role playing games where you're in a movie. So I've been having fun with that, and really for the past 2 weeks studying my lines.
Yeah, all three of them.
Yep.
What video games have you been playing?
Animal Crossing. So yeah, definitely play Animal Crossing. I got the Zelda game. I'm dying a lot, but it's fun.
It's okay. You're allowed.
But there are a couple beautiful Annapurna interactive games that are all story based. One of them is What Remains of Edith Finch, A Night in the Woods, Florence.
Love Night in the Woods. It's so cute and
All
terrifying.
story based, and you can just sort of sink into a story. It's really halfway between watching a movie and playing a video game, because waiting for the story to unfold, but also getting to choose where your character goes and things like that.
Do you read a lot?
I don't, and I'm embarrassed to say it, and my father and the rest of my family are going to be ashamed, but because they read like crazy, they read all the time. I do not. I listen to audiobooks. I listen to podcasts a lot. But if there's anything in my hands and I'm reading, it's a script.
Right. Any good podcast recommendations?
I'm a huge fan of Pop Culture Happy Hour, which is the NPR pop culture podcast twice a week. I'm a big fan of Slow Burn from Slate. I am a big fan of, I say big fan, now I can't even think of the names. Invisibilia, that's the other one I was thinking of that's really good. And Radio Lab. I think those are both really good.
Yeah, all really good, well-produced stuff. Do you Netflix? And
oh yeah,
what's on your queue right now? What would we find?
So I don't do a queue. I used to do that, but they shove stuff
Your
in
list,
right? So I've been watching Dead to Me. That's one I've been doing a Netflix party with, watching with people. I've done a couple Netflix parties with friends to watch some movies. I'll be honest with you, if I'm watching Netflix at this point, because I don't feel good about myself if I end up watching a bunch of TV instead of doing something else now, either picking up needlepoint or reading a script. So if I'm watching something, I'm going back to my pop culture serotonin, which is Parks and Rec or The Office, and just endlessly rewatchable stuff.
It's like having company. It's like having friends in the house.
It really is. It really is.
Did you watch a lot of TV growing up?
Yes. I almost said no, but I know that my brothers might be watching and they would lie. And they would tell me that I was lying, because I certainly watched more than they did. I was much more of an indoor kid than my brothers were. But we were also a TV family. Like, my brothers could also quote every episode of The Cosby Show and A Different World and Family Ties. And, we watched a good bit of TV growing up, and movies. We loved entertainment in my household.
Yeah. So this is a very broad question, unrelated to that conversation. What brings you joy?
A lot. I get a huge amount of joy out of laughing, and out of laughing, other people laughing, and laughing at other people and laughing with other people. It is the most sort of unbridled expression of it, to me. So I was thinking about that the other day because we're so isolated and I basically live alone. And so I, if I'm laughing out loud, like, it takes a lot to, laugh out loud when you're on your own.
Right.
And
Yeah.
so I've really been seeking out stuff like that that makes me laugh. Um, I tell you, it also what also really brings me joy is when I learn something new um, about relationships with people. I think a lot of us become fans of theater or go into theater. I know I did, partly as growing up as a gay kid. You're just sort of reaching out for anything that is that can help. That is expressing for you what you can express inside. You know, and so I started very early learning about relationships and how to be a friend and be in relationships from outside influences and from art and from theater. And as I've gotten older and stronger and more courageous and healthier and all these other things, I've started to learn more about how to be a good friend, how to be a good brother, son, employee, all of these things that are relationship based. And you know it still thrills me when I learn something new about how to better be a better person for other people and with other people. um it's a kind of winding answer, but I think about it a lot. And uh and yeah, that's why I stay in theater too, because I think it's the oldest way we've tried to relate to each other, is relating stories to one another and then imitating each other, which is all acting is.
As an actor, what is something that you continue to improve or you continue to discover?
As an actor,
Yeah.
uh, uh, my own power and agency. As I've gotten older, and I hope this happens for everyone, but as I've gotten older, the all the hangups that you have about what you look like and how you sound and all of that just become less and less important. And so the older I get, um, the less likely I am. This may sound contradictory, but the older I get, the less likely I am or interested I am in ever watching any video or anything of my own performance. When I was a kid and when I was growing up, I always wanted to watch because I was like, how did I do? Was it good? Was it good? And um, and now it's just very simple to me. It's like I said before, I will never see a show that I'm in, because when you're in it, that's a completely different experience. And your mind's eye and your mind's ear has a completely different perspective of what it is that you're doing. And so going and watching it later, it will never be what it was in your head.
Mhm.
And that's why, going back to relationships, I have to put my trust and my faith in the people that I'm working with, my directors and my people on stage and the audience. And like, that's why I'm doing it. I'm not doing it, sort of, I'm doing it for me, but like, it's an act of service. I mean, it's an act of service, I think, to really let yourself out there and um, and try really hard and just let people experience you.
Mhm. You mentioned that you do read reviews. Many actors don't, either for superstitious purposes or because they're afraid it will influence the work,
Mm-hmm.
or they really don't want to hear it. Why do you read reviews, and how do you read a review?
How? Immediately, like when they come out, like I read them. um I think that has I think that has something to do with experience and being here longer. Like, I know I don't have any fear that that something in a review would change anything that I would change anything that I'm doing. But I read reviews the same way that I also want to hear what people are saying in the lobby after a show. I'm working hard. We're working hard to be of service, and I want to know if we're being of service and how that's being responded to. I also I read reviews because I like good writing about theater. It's my favorite art form, and we have good writers writing about theater, yourself included. Like, it's good writing, and so I enjoy that part of it. And I'm not just talking about shows I'm in. Like, I read all of the reviews that you all put out. It's about my community, and it's it's what's going on. And I don't think that a review should ever, nothing should ever tell someone what to think about a show. Um, you know, but I think at times a review can help put into words. I'll give you a great example, actually. Sometimes I will go and see a show and I don't know what to think. Like I was saying before, I'm really open, and I'm like, yes, let me be open to this experience. But then I leave and I'm like, okay, I don't know what I think. And more often than not, what that means is that I didn't like it. But I don't necessarily know that. But I will say that when I went to go see the Playmakers production of Ragtime, I did not know what I was thinking about it when I left. And what I was thinking, and some of the things that I was thinking, I saw borne out in the review that you wrote for it. And I think that's helpful and interesting, because I can say, I was like, well, that's why I think. Because when you're looking at it through a critical lens, and I don't think I could ever do it. One, I'm not a writer, and I don't enjoy it enough to be any good at it. But also, it's difficult for me to put myself in that kind of mindset and put around it. And I'm just a fan. I'm a fan. I'm a fan from way back. I've been reading, the first 8 pages of the New Yorker since I was 10.
That says a lot. That just needs to be on a shirt and lets everybody know exactly who you are. So 2 more things I wanted to ask you. One, and this is based on a conversation that you and I had before, and no one had ever brought it up to me before, is when people say things to us like, oh, you're so good in the show, you're too good, you should be in New York. Or this production is so good, it should be in New York, as though the area we're in is undeserving. How do you, just talk to me about that?
So I've had this conversation with a couple people, and it's always, and the way in this context, I remember being in the lobby of after a show and hearing someone say, not you should be in New York, but saying something like, this was wonderful, you should really do something with this. As if we didn't just
do something.
We just did something. And the other one, which is really a little bit more complicated and a little bit more complex, which is like, you were great, what are you doing here? Like, that just injects this whole judgment system that you've got about where arts matter and where arts are working. So one, my father taught me very early on that the most appropriate response ever, whenever anyone tells you anything about a performance, is to smile and say, thank you, I enjoy what I do. And so that's typically what I do. But yeah, I think it also says something about the lack of I guess people don't care enough about the arts and the theater that's in their own backyards and in front of them. And they believe that the only way to be successful is to be on Broadway or to be in Hollywood or something like that, And this is not #not all people, but it's when you hear things like that. But on the other hand, right? So I I'll do a show and hear people say, "Oh my gosh, I saw it on Broadway. You guys were better than Broadway." I'm like, oh, okay. That I'm trying not to take away from that person's experience, because quite honestly, like I said before, I don't know what that person came into this theater with. They may have enjoyed this better than their experience seeing it on Broadway for whatever reason. And so it's not my job to inject onto any audience what they should think about a production, but I do think that that there could, our audiences could be challenged to value what the theater community is bringing, you know, even more. You know, audiences are great, but it goes both ways. We have a responsibility to put things in front of our audiences that are meaningful and that they will enjoy and that are thrilling and that are important and that are stories that look like their communities. So, you know, it's, you know, Tori Amos used to talk about the wheel with the audience, and it's a circle. You have to keep it going. Like, you can't just give and not get anything back, and you also can't just, you know, take from your audience. You've got to keep that wheel going. So yeah.
My last question. Desert Island, 5 cast recordings. What are you taking with you?
You. Okay, I'm going to, for a minute, assume that this is 5 cast recordings. I've also got 5 other versions and genres that I can come with. So the first thing that comes to mind is that Stephen Sondheim concert at Celebration at Carnegie Hall. Like, that's a cast album. It's not a run, but I'm going to say cast album. So that's one, because that's going to hit some of my greatest hits. Sunny in the Park with George, because I need that whole thing. Merrily We Roll Along, for the overture, but for the rest of it too. Okay, so that's 3 Sondheim. I need 2 others. Gosh, you know, I don't listen to a ton of cast albums anymore. I'm gonna say it's not a cast album, but the original movie soundtrack to Little Shop of Horrors, because it started it all for me, and it still gets
so good.
It's badass. And I'm trying to think of one that makes me laugh a lot. It's another, honestly, it's another concert. It's Infinite Joy, all the songs of Bill Finn, who wrote Falsettos, Falsetto Land.
Yeah.
It's another concert of his, which is hilarious and some of my favorite tunes of all time.
You mentioned wanting to make sure you had other stuff. So 5 non-cast albums. What's the other stuff?
Well, I mean, I love music, and you know, I don't know if anybody's been on Facebook. You've seen the like top 10 albums and
Sure.
people have been doing. So I did that recently. So I would want those 10. You know, there's an Indigo Girls album in there. I spent one day and cheated and did Tori Amos, Fiona Apple, and Alanis Morissette all in one day because I love them. I would want the complete works of Mozart with me at all times. The Who's greatest hits, Queen's greatest hits, all my arena rock bands, and the glam rocks, David Bowie, all of that stuff. Yeah.
You spoke of Alanis Morissette. Jagged Little Pill.
Yeah.
What's your familiarity level with it right now?
I listened to the cast album. That's it. So I don't know. I haven't read enough to know what the story is. I've heard great things about what they did with it and how they put it together. I loved what they've done with the cast album. It's produced, and they've kept the sound the same. They didn't do like a lot of folks do, and they'll completely reproduce it with different.
Yeah, it doesn't sound like a big show.
Yeah. So I loved what they did with it.
So, any final thought to leave the folks with as they sit at home, all nuzzled up, listening to you?
3 things. buy a ticket for buyer and seller. You can go to mcgregorhall.org to get tickets for it. I think they're up and available. I think Mark was working on that. 2, thank you, Lauren. Thank you, Dustin. Lauren, this interview series has been a joy and a balm for a lot of people. And I know it's taken a lot of work, and you were tireless in your efforts. And I personally really, really appreciate it. And Dustin, you've let me be self-indulgent for an hour and 15, so I owe you big time. And 3, everybody just like, be kind to one another. When we get back out of this, be really kind to one another. Everybody is going through a traumatic experience right now, and so everybody deserves grace. Everybody deserves grace. So,
thank you, Brian. You are a delight. Thanks for spending some time with me, and thanks, Lauren, for having me again. I said, "Can I interview someone else?" She said, "Who do you want to interview?" I'm like, "Brian Westbrook."
Well,
I really enjoyed Gentleman's Guide. I enjoyed parts of Into the Woods. and I'm really grateful that you came on and you did this interview, because I've met you just in passing, but it's fun to learn more about you and be a fly on the wall for these interviews. So thank you, Dustin, for doing it so I could be a fly on the wall. I appreciate it. Dustin, you'll be back on Monday night. You will be interviewed by Kim Jackson, with your partners in crime.
Is that
Outrage.
podcast? The cast?
Yeah, we're putting Marat Sod back up. We're doing a streaming concert, and then we're going to reopen the show in July. So I'm going to be here with my lead actor, Simon Kaplan, who you saw play King Lear, who is my Marquis de Sade, and my partner in crime and in my house. And composer Al Riggs will be here to talk with Kim. So that's going to be exciting.
Yeah, that'll be Monday. And tomorrow, I am taking the day off because my daughter is graduating. So I will be at graduation in the afternoon, but Mike McGee is going to hold down the fort, and he's taking us on another field trip to the West End, because that's what he does. And he will be talking with Carly Cook from the beautiful UK tour. So I'm really excited about that. That will be on Instagram live chat. And then Saturday, I'll be back with Vivica C. Cox. Nice. And I'm really excited about that. So thank you guys for being here and watching. I did see Jagged Little Pill. I am not a fan of jukebox musicals, and I can tell you guys that is not a jukebox musical. The songs are woven through a really interesting, timely story that has nothing to do with Alanis Morissette. And the songs work. It's really interesting. So I think if there ever are Tonys, they will do well.
And as a teacher, I do also want to say congrats to all of the seniors that are graduating this week, next week. My high school darlings, love to you all. I hate that you're not getting to all strut your stuff, but you are well loved.
They are. It's an interesting time for them, right, Dustin? I can imagine it's an interesting time for your students.
Yeah, it's not what they expected.
Yeah. Nope. And these are all babies from right after 9/11. So they've had it rough, their schooling. But thank you guys, and join Mike tomorrow on Instagram Live at RDU on Stage, and I will see you, Dustin, Monday night.
See ya.
Thanks, Brian.
Bye.